This is a production of PBS Charlotte.
PBS Charlotte and the League of Women Voters of Charlotte-Mecklenburg present the Charlotte Mayoral Primary Debate.
Hello, I'm Jeff Sonnier with WTVI PBS Charlotte, and welcome to the 2017 Charlotte Mayoral Primary Debate, sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Charlotte-Mecklenburg. We invited all 8 candidates running for mayor to join us. There are 6 of them here, and during the next hour, you'll hear their views on many of the issues that are important to you in this election. Now, today's questions were prepared jointly by PBS Charlotte and the League of Women Voters of Charlotte-Mecklenburg. The candidates were not given the questions in advance. During our debate, the candidates will have a minute to respond to the questions. We may shorten that to 30 seconds if we run short on time during the debate. Candidates may also challenge each other by raising a yellow challenge card. Challenges will be 30 seconds each. Candidates will have 2 challenges to use during the debate if they'd like. Now, before we get to the questions and the answers, we'll allow each candidate to make a 30-second opening statement. And we're going to go in alphabetical order, so we'll start with Kimberly Page Barnett, a Republican.
My name is Kimberly Page Barnett. I was born and raised here in Charlotte, North Carolina. I have over 18 years of experience as a Mecklenburg County magistrate, 18 years, 11 months exactly. I was 3 times elected to the North Carolina Board of the North Carolina Magistrates Association. I would love your vote, and I believe in decisions for the right reasons with integrity.
Thank you. And our next opening statement comes from Democrat Joel Ford.
Hi, I'm Senator Joel Ford, and before I became a 3-term state senator, I'm a husband and I'm a dad. And so what's important to me is family. And so what I want for my family, I want for your family. And that is a safe neighborhood, a high-performing neighborhood public school, a good-paying job or a successful small business, and the ability to take a vacation every once in a while. Unfortunately, we have 2 Charlottes, and that's the reason why I'm running for mayor.
Our next opening statement comes from Democrat Constance Partee Johnson.
Hello, I'm Constance Partee Johnson, publisher of City Political News. I am very eager to make certain that you understand that I have always observed politicians, always studied the political process, and my goals through this publication was to ensure that you knew the bills, the campaigns, and those who are running for office, and knew as much about them as possible. So I am running now because I feel that there is a great need to engage in this process running for mayor. I'm concerned about the city and want desperately for you to have great leadership that cares about all segments of our community. I feel that is lacking. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Our next opening statement comes from Democrat Vi Lyles.
Thank you to WTVI and the League of Women Voters for hosting this debate. I've served you as Mayor Pro Tem in my 2nd term on the Charlotte City Council. Most importantly, besides being a mother, a grandmother, a breast cancer survivor, I'm a public servant. I care deeply about the city, and this mayor's race is about the city that we need to build, good-paying jobs. For those who work in Charlotte, we ought to be able to say you can afford to live in Charlotte. So what I would like for you to do is understand the issues and go to vilyles.com and take a look at my positions, which are clearly stated with actionable items. Thank you.
Our next opening statement comes from Democratic candidate Lucille Puckett.
My name is Lucille Puckett, and I'm running for mayor because I love Charlotte and I believe in Charlotte. I am motivated to serve the community, protect our quality of life, and give voice and advocacy for all citizens of Charlotte. When my son was murdered last year, I knew that I had to do something. I knew that I could not sit idly by and just let my son be another statistic and look at the crime rate increase. I talked to all of the other candidates that was in office, and I said, we need to do something because the murder rate is going to continue to increase, and that's exactly what it's doing. So if you're not part of the solution, then you're part of the problem. And I'm running on change. We need a voice for everyone, equality, we need affordable housing, we need equal jobs, we need higher pay rates.
Thank you,
My
Ms.
name
Puckett.
is Lucille Puckett, and that's why I'm running for mayor.
And our final opening statement comes from Democrat Jennifer Roberts.
I'm Mayor Jennifer Roberts, and I'm running for re-election to continue to fight for Charlotte. During my time as mayor, we've created more than 15,000 jobs. We've added more than 2,000 affordable housing units, and I've created a new after-school program that connects more parents and children to quality after-school programs to ensure their success. And when President Trump and Republicans have tried to hurt Charlotte, I've stood up for Charlotte, to protect public education, to defend our environment, and to reject the policies of fear and discrimination. I'm Mayor Jennifer Roberts. I'm running for re-election because you know that no one will fight harder for you.
Thank you, candidates, for all of your opening statements. I want to remind the candidates that the challenges are only to be used during the question and answer portion of the debate, not during the opening statements. If that wasn't made clear before, I think it's been made clear now. And I'll also only be interrupting candidates when they go over their time limit. So please try to stay within that 1 minute or 30-second time limit. Now it's time for our first question, and here's our question. What should the city's role be in defining the rights of the LGBT community? And how will you, as mayor, operate within the confines of the state law which repealed HB 2, but also limits the power of local governments to pass local LGBT ordinances? Our first answer comes from Republican Kimberly Page Barnett.
I don't believe in that bill whatsoever. I don't believe that transgenders should be in bathrooms based on their who they identify with. I never have. I believe that there could be a separate restroom, but however, I do not believe that is should be allowed whatsoever. As a magistrate, I issued processes on persons that were in the bathroom, males that were in the bathroom, and you never know what they are. They scare children, quite frankly.
All right, our next answer to that question comes from Democrat Joel Ford.
I think it's important for us to understand that everyone has a right for equal protection under the law. As a state senator, I think it's important that we pass legislation that's going to be consistent and that we protect all members of our community, city, and state. And what I would look to do as mayor is to work with the state legislature. Let's be clear, we cannot do anything as a city without having a healthy, functioning relationship with the North Carolina General Assembly. That's what I represent in my candidacy for mayor for the city of Charlotte, and I will provide those protections for all people in the city of Charlotte.
The next answer to that question comes from Democrat Constance Partee Johnson.
I am very concerned that our state legislature could possibly create such a bill that defines where people use the restrooms. So be it. It's very important that we understand that people have freedoms and liberties in this country, and North Carolina is no different. North Carolina is a part of that nation, part of our nation. What I was concerned about mostly is that once the bill was repealed, which was great, to allow people that freedom, that we still didn't provide what those bills actually restricted, and that was freedom. We have men's, women's restrooms, but we don't have unisex restrooms to give people the freedom to choose which restrooms they may use. I know this is a very complex and silly bill that we had to fight over and expose to the whole nation as something we couldn't simply solve within a couple of minutes by building unisex bathrooms. And within 6 months of my election to mayor, I will certainly provide those unisex bathrooms to that population. Thank you.
Our question is about state limitations on local governments regarding LGBT limits and ordinances. Our next answer comes from Democrat Vi Lyles.
Thank you for the question. The state not only addresses this as an issue, but there are many other instances where we in Charlotte, and we have local government that they've said as a part of the state's power, here's how Charlotte should do things. It's really great that we had an opportunity to end the unemployment that was going on as a result of HB 2. It's deeply regrettable that that law was passed with limitations on what local government could do. We have to believe that government should not discriminate against people. Think about all of the opportunities that have been misplaced as a result of people not being able to fully participate. I believe in the non-discrimination ordinance. I believe that one of the things a mayor has to do is work with other organizations that are active in human rights and in LGBT rights to work to build a coalition to go to Raleigh and talk about what we think this state should be, a state that does not discriminate.
Thank you. Our next answer comes from Democrat Lucille Puckett.
I believe in equal protection for all people, for all. The state limitations, I think we need to go back to the table and we need to have a conversation because there need to be equal rights for everyone. If the bathroom bill, we need to talk about having unisex bathrooms or family restrooms. There shouldn't be no form of discrimination.
And our final answer for that question comes from Democrat Jennifer Roberts.
I'm proud that Charlotte stood up against discrimination and included the entire LGBT community, because what we know in Charlotte is we want to be welcoming and inclusive to everyone, no matter who they love, no matter what pronoun they use. And it is extremely unfortunate the state preempted our non-discrimination ordinance and is not allowing local governments to help protect their own people. But we have been working with the private sector, with nonprofits, with youth groups, to make sure that we are valuing every single person. And I want to give a shout out to our hospitality industry in the Always Welcome Charlotte campaign that we participated in, because our hotels, our restaurants, our taxis are working extra hard to show that they are inclusive. We want to be a place where everyone, including the LGBT community, feels safe, feels welcomed and included, and is definitely part of our future.
Thank you. You're watching the Charlotte mayoral debate on WTVI, sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Charlotte-Mecklenburg. Our next question deals with toll roads. The city of Charlotte is on record in support of the I-77 toll lane project between Uptown and Mooresville. As mayor, would you support the current toll lane project, and would you support additional future toll lane projects in Charlotte and surrounding communities? First answer for this question comes from Democrat Joel Ford.
I would absolutely not support tolls in this region or in the city of Charlotte. And the reason is if you take a look at the local decisions that were made by the local leadership, it has created and damaged a regional partnership that we once enjoyed. And so the proper course of action is to work with the local delegation from Mecklenburg County to the North Carolina General Assembly, in addition to being a strong advocate for the region and for the city of Charlotte so that we can draw down the proper resources from the state of North Carolina. When that is not done and we operate in isolation, we damage relationships regionally, we damage relationships on a state level that causes more harm than good. And so what has happened because of failed local leadership, we now have a regional partnership that is fractured and that is in disarray.
Our next answer comes from Democrat Constance Partee Johnson.
The building of the highway was actually initiated before the people had a chance to give voice to it, and that is completely out of order. I would not support a toll road. I believe that the $645 million project should be compensated through the government, since the government started the project before allowing the people to give input. But most importantly, almost half of it is already compensated. We already have most of the funding already through the government and through grants. And I believe the rest of the funds could be raised through Tiger and through other grant programs. The money is available for a highway building, but I just believe that it's not up to the citizens to be taxed and not up to the citizens to accept any kind of threats of taxation to build this highway. Thank you.
Our next answer comes from Democrat Vi Lyles.
Thank you for this question. Since I am the City Council's representative on the Regional Transportation Board, I'd like to really encourage everyone to go to the NCDOT website and look at the study report that examines whether or not the toll road should be continued as is or be done differently. I have to say that this decision was made in 2011 with Speaker Tom Tillis in the state legislature, who wanted to have a P3 project, public-private partnership, and Mecklenburg County was chosen as a place to do that. What the local officials in Mecklenburg County wanted were managed lanes. That does not mean tolls. And I do believe we need to have managed lanes because it relates to our transit system. So buses can travel at a speed that can get people to work quickly and reliably. Toll roads are not what we wanted. Toll roads were what the state legislators wanted. We wanted the ability for people to have a good job and get to work within a reasonable amount of time on public transit and also with the use of high occupancy vehicles. Thank you.
We're talking about the support of toll roads both now and in the future. Our next answer comes from Democrat Lucille Puckett.
No, I do not support the toll roads as of now. And who knows what the future may hold. I mean, I can't speak. That need to be negotiated. They need to be talked about with the people. So I will not say that I would not support the toll roads in the future. But as of now, because Charlotte is a growing city. Charlotte is a growing place. So the future.
Our next answer to the question comes from Democrat Jennifer Roberts.
So as I said during my first campaign, I was against the contract that created the tolls and that gave local governments little options on some of the questions about whether trucks could use the lanes, whether local governments had any input as to limits on what tolls would be charged. And what I saw when I was elected is that the contract, would it have been broken at that point, would have cost Charlotte over $200 million. So we are working with the state to see if there are any ways to amend or make the contract better. But it's a bad contract. And a number of people have said that at the local and state level. Going forward, we need to look at all transportation options. We need to look at transit and getting cars off the road, more bikeable and walkable neighborhoods as both our elderly and our young folks prefer, and to take a comprehensive regional look at how are we going to continue to be an area where people can get to work in a timely manner. And there are a lot more options other than managed lanes or toll roads.
Thank you, Jennifer Roberts. We have a challenge to Jennifer Roberts' answer from Joel Ford, Democrat. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. The question that I have for the mayor is, where was her leadership when we were going through these negotiations with the CTPRO and the state of North Carolina as it relates to drawing down resources so that we would not have to have a toll managed lane process by which we would widen I-77? So again, the question is, what did the mayor do and what actions can she show that she did not support or approve that particular contract?
All right, we're going to move on to question number 3 now in our debate of mayoral candidates. Question number 3 deals with the protests in Charlotte from last September. How would you rate the city's handling of the protest in Charlotte, in particular, the release of critical information by police, the coordination with state officials during the protests, and the public statements made by the mayor's office and by the city council during the protests? Our first answer for this question will come from Democrat Constance Partee Johnson.
Thank you. I was very disappointed in how our city representatives, city council members responded. Not all of them, but certainly the mayor. I would grade it poor, give it an F. I saw the leadership speaking about it, but that was the most I saw from the leadership of Charlotte. I think one press conference was what I saw. I did not see a leader that brought both sides together. I did not see a leader peacefully walking with those who were victims of these crimes. Then following, someone else was shot along with the march. And there are responsibilities that a mayor takes walking with people, marching in front of people to ensure those circumstances don't happen. The state officials, I think, responded fairly quickly to make sure that the city was secure because of the lack of responsibility, the state had to and federal government had to intervene. And I consider that very poor.
Our next answer to that question comes from Democrat Vi Lyles.
I'm not going to rate something where we had the loss of 2 lives. When we lost those 2 young men, Mr. Carr and Mr. Scott, that was just enough to say right there, we were not in a good place. When we talk about how we handle this, we actually, I believe, had the opportunity to stay off of national television and work more with the people that live in this community. I had a former mayor say that if we have incidents like this, who are we calling into the room? How do we get participation? The clergy certainly stepped up, and I think that we had the opportunity to have others step up. When I was in Marshall Park that night, I saw it beginning, and to see the end of this was deeply regrettable. We need the leadership that includes and engages everyone in the city when we have these kinds of incidents. Going forward, I wrote a 7-point plan that I sent to the mayor and the city council to say these are some opportunities to do things differently. Systematic ones are around jobs and housing, But more importantly, the one that needs to be most important right now is trust in our law enforcement and the trust with our community.
Our next answer to the question comes from Democrat Lucille Puckett.
After the protests and how it was handled, I would give it an F+ grade. Because the city leaders should have been more involved and more in the community. The community just wanted to be heard. They wanted the releasing of the tape. They wanted to see what took place. If they was more involved and was able to see what took place, then our city wouldn't have went in a disarray. The community is tired of leadership that don't respond to their calls, don't respond to them. So they will see more of these kind of protests and more of these kind of things happening if they don't learn how to get out into the community. Not just do the police need to get out into the community, but the leadership need to get out in the community and learn the diversity of the people that they're serving. So it was handled very poorly and need to be done a whole lot different and more community involvement.
We're talking about how City Hall handled the protests here in Charlotte last September. Our next answer comes from Democrat Jennifer Roberts.
First, I agree with my colleague, Vi Lyles, that the loss of life was a tragedy, and our thoughts and prayers go out to the families. No one should have to lose a family member the way the Scott family did. I was uptown every night during the protests. I met with protesters. I met with faith leaders. I kept in close contact with people on many sides of this issue, and we have deep challenges in Charlotte. We could have been more transparent, and I was the first city official to call for transparency, to call for release of body camera footage, because I know that we need to establish that trust between our officers, our men and women in uniform, and the public. We have made great progress since then. We have worked to increase training. We have worked to put officers in the community. We have hired officers who better reflect the communities they serve. But we still have a lot of work to do. We've got an affordable housing goal. We have job creation that we're working on, and after-school programs to keep our youth off the streets. Many things are going to help move our community forward, and it takes all of us working together.
Our next answer comes from Republican Kimberly Page Barnett.
As mayor, what I would most like to discourage is assembly. Protests are confrontational, they're chaotic, they scare people. I believe there's a better way to express yourselves. It could always be done with people to meet as a group and respond through the internet or any other way to make sure that people are safe. I don't agree with protests. I would do everything to discourage them and to research other ways to express themselves to keep all persons safe, including the police department. I believe that it was very confrontational and it is expressive of democratic behavior.
Thank you. And our final answer comes from Democrat Joel Ford.
Riots are the voice of the unheard. And if you take a look at the leadership during that particular time in our city's history, it was an absolute failure. One of the things that we cannot afford to do is to undermine authority publicly, let alone get on international television and roll our police chief under the bus. Under no circumstances should that ever happen. We have to provide strong leadership during a crisis. And what we saw last September was the exact opposite. And so as mayor, what I'm looking to do is to work on the real issues before a crisis happened. And so the issues and the challenges in the city of Charlotte didn't just happen. They have been decades in the making. And so if our local leaders would focus on local issues, such as better paying jobs, affordable housing, traffic and infrastructure, we could mitigate and save a lot more lives and help a lot more families than what we currently are doing right now.
Thank you. And you're watching the Charlotte mayoral primary debate here on WTVI PBS Charlotte, sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Charlotte-Mecklenburg. And I'm going to take a break right now and apologize to one of our candidates, Kimberly Page Barnett. I overlooked you a moment ago and we were talking about toll roads. That's been pointed out to me, and I apologize. I want to give you a minute right now to talk about toll roads, since I missed you in the series of answers before. If you'd like to take that minute now, please.
Yes, I don't agree with toll roads. I'd like to know where the money's going, when the money is spent, and when the currency is collected, and where the monies go. As far as the future, what I'm concerned about, and the most important thing that I think needs to go first, is the Lennox system and the bus transportation system, to get it flowing better and working better, and encourage people not to be scared to utilize these systems, and then we would know where to go with the toll road situation.
Thank you, Ms. Barnett. I'm sorry again for the mistake. I'll try not to make it again. Thank you. Let's go to question number 4 for our candidates now. A recent study says Charlotte is one of America's toughest places for those in poverty to climb out of poverty. What would you do as mayor to share the city's economic success with those facing economic pressures, for citizens who don't have a job or an education or a place to live? Our first answer to this question comes from Democrat Vi Lyles.
The ranking of Charlotte as the 50th in the large cities without having upward mobility is a real problem and a real issue. But it's not something that I'm unfamiliar with. We had a study in the 70s that showed we placed infrastructure in different parts of the city based upon income. We had, in 1980s, we had studies that defined city within a city as being a city that's been left behind, and programs were put in place to try to reserve and provide housing in those areas. But now we're talking about a holistic approach to this. To me, there's some very specific things that mayors can do, and these are the things that I pledge to do. One, whenever there's public money involved in projects, to require minority and women business participation in those projects, because we know small businesses provide jobs for people. Two, that we really address the issue of affordable housing by working very hard to place housing where students can have stable work environment or stable school environments. The other issue is that we have permitting systems that often cost us in terms of creating opportunity. So we need to attract new businesses and really ask them to build from our local employment base and employ those people.
Thank you, Vi Lyles. We remind the candidates that you have 1 minute for each answer. And our next answer comes from Democrat Lucille Puckett.
As mayor, being a part of the system and a voice for those that we're now talking about, the system works in silos. You have the city, you have the county, and you have the school board. None of those groups, none of those organizations, none of those boards work together. There needs to be a meeting of the minds and involve the people that need those services. Because you can't guess what they need to fix the problem if they're not at the table. Because being a part of the system, that I see that it won't work the way that the city council have it. That's why I want to be that voice, because I know that the way that the system is now, it don't work. All of the top leaderships need to come together and have a conversation, and definitely involve the people that's at the bottom to help them rise to the top, because the people at the top seems to want to keep suppressing the ones, and then they claim they want to help them.
Our next answer to that question comes from Democrat Jennifer Roberts.
When Charlotte discovered it was 50 out of 50 cities and closing the opportunity gap, it put together a task force. We have those recommendations in front of us, and many of those recommendations align around youth and education and creating stable family structure. I'm the candidate who has put the most time and effort into supporting education, into starting a new after-school program, which we announced today has just received over $1 million grant. And one of the people I've been working with on that is someone who was actually in the protesting lack of opportunity in Charlotte. So we are working very hard. I have a Mayor's Youth Employment Program. I plan to double that to have more than 1,000 young people in the summer connected to real career opportunities. But I also want to make sure only 2 of those 21 strategies directly related to women and girls. So I want to make sure that we're not leaving half our population behind. That's why I fought for equal pay, for paid family leave, and for a $15 minimum wage. And that's why I helped raise $8 million for a domestic violence shelter. We want to make sure women and girls have the same opportunities, and I will continue to work to close that opportunity gap for everyone.
We're asking candidates for Charlotte Mayor how those in poverty can climb out of poverty. And our next answer comes from Republican Kimberly Page Barnett.
I believe the only way to get out of poverty and help families is to increase the minimum wage. I do not feel that it should be $15. However, I think that should be at a local level, and I do believe in that. I believe that it should be $11 and a little bit lower taxes with the federal government. It's always a step-by-step process to get out of poverty. People have to be able, want to work. You have to want to work, and that's what's most important.
Our next answer comes from Democrat Joel Ford.
If you grow up poor in the city of Charlotte, you have less than a 5% chance to get out of poverty. That's a problem that keeps me up at night. And so as a husband and father, I understand what that looks like. And for the local leadership to talk about this in the abstract, as if this just happened, it hasn't. The city of Charlotte has been on this track, 50 out of 50 in economic mobility for decades. So what we need is a fresh voice, new ideas to come to the table to help solve this problem for the city of Charlotte. If you go to my website, joelfordformayor.com, you can see a concrete plan on how we're going to help move this city forward. And so what we need is leadership that's going to take us from 50 to 40, 40 to 30, 30 to 20, and to get us into the top 10 in the nation in economic mobility. For local leadership not to recognize this day one when they take office, instead of focusing on national issues, we need to work on local issues, and that is serving families in our community who are most in need and hardest to serve.
The question is about poverty. The final answer comes from Constance Partee Johnson.
Yes. We have always had issues with discrimination and equity in North Carolina. Our minority businesses suffer greatly. We're also in the bottom 10 in supporting minority businesses, as well as being number 50 in upward mobility. When corporations decide to choose a state, they review the aptitudes of the citizenship, and they also look at the number of businesses that are viable. They look at skill sets. They look at educational programs to make sure that those in that particular state can adapt to the work that they need done. Charlotte is a very viable source for education, but we have great discrimination in the school systems. Black schools in the predominantly black communities are suffering and not receiving an equitable opportunity and chance as the other regions of Charlotte. And we need to focus on black businesses desperately in order to close the gap in our economic development.
Thank you, candidates, for those answers. Our next question deals with the problem of Charlotte crime. This year, Charlotte's seen a lot more murders than we're used to. If this keeps up, this year's murder rate could be the highest in more than 10 years. As mayor, what are your plans to control crime, in particular violent crime, in Charlotte neighborhoods? Our first answer to this question comes from Democrat Lucille Puckett.
As you all know, my son was a victim of homicide, of this violent crime. Number 9 last year. We're already over 50 this year. And what needs to be done is the leadership needs to get out into the community. The community, once again, wants to be heard. If they're not heard, it's by any means necessary. They need jobs. They need housing. They need education. They need to be listened to. They need to be involved. So when I become mayor, that's one of the first things that I want to do is have a community sit down, a forum, to bring the people that wants to be heard, because if they're not heard, you're going to listen to them one way or another. So housing, true affordable housing. We know that $1,100 for a 1-bedroom is not affordable. We know that minimum wage will not help them survive with their family. So if you put 2 roosters in a pen, they're gonna fight their way out. And that's what they're doing even with gentrification. They're putting everybody together. We need to give them the resources that they need to really become self-sufficient and survive.
Thank you. Our next answer comes from Democrat Jennifer Roberts.
The homicide rate in Charlotte is unsettling and unacceptable. We are continuing to work with CMPD, with law enforcement, but also with counselors, the faith community, with teachers, with parents, because we need to continue to focus on better solutions that are collaborative. We have worked to put more community policing efforts in place, people like Sean Corbett with Cops and Barbers, but so many people are stepping up to try to better connect our officers to the community. We also need to work on issues of domestic violence. We know that many of the victims were intimate partners, and I've continued to work to raise awareness with young people and with our population in general around domestic violence. We have a multifaceted approach, hiring more officers who reflect the communities they serve, working with the Justice Department to have jail diversion so young people have an opportunity to get mentors and positive programs to avoid violence. But there is no silver bullet. It's going to continue to take work on many sides in a collaborative manner.
Our next answer comes, we've got a challenge from Constance Partee Johnson to the mayor's comments.
Yes, it is very important that the question be understood that we're focusing on how to bring people out of poverty, and to associate poverty with crime is something that concerns me. The poor are simply poor because they lack opportunities. It's not because they've committed crimes. It is not the poor generally committing most of the crimes. I would say the largest population committing criminality or part of criminality are people who are middle-class folks in business. White-collar crime is way more. But we have issues with leadership equating crime with the poor, and that is not an equation we should consider.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. We're going to go on now to the answer to the question about what mayoral candidates would do to control violent crime here in Charlotte neighborhoods. Our next answer comes from Republican Kimberly Page Barnett.
I think that there might need to be some research to find out exactly you can do an in-depth more study of their financial situation, address some other issues, and quite frankly, I don't want to say them, but I think that they need to target these areas and figure out exactly who these people are to generate some more ideas that can flow. Diversity, I believe, is all over the city of Charlotte now. I do not feel that one side of the city has less diversity than the other. I also believe in more visibility by the police department, and definitely not in cars, but on the streets, foot patrol. But it has to be done that they need to be safe as well. They have families just like you have families. So I just think there needs to be some more in-depth research.
Our next answer comes from Democrat Joel Ford.
We can't police our way out of this current crime wave in the city of Charlotte. We're going to have to create some jobs. And so what the mayor can do is to be a champion and an advocate for those parts of our community that are most in need and hardest to serve. And so if you take a look at the unemployment rates and the underemployment rates in East and West Charlotte, we need someone in City Hall that is going to talk to the economic developers and to make sure that when we're spending public dollars, we're putting more monies into those communities to help raise up those individuals who are most in need in our community. One of the things that the mayor can do is to be a supporter of law enforcement. Right now, we have over 200 vacancies in Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department, with more to come based upon these pending retirements. And so it's also important that the mayor get on the recruiting trail to make sure that law enforcement know, one, that they're going to be supported, they're going to be the best trained, best equipped, and best paid that the city of Charlotte can afford, so that we can retain those officers and make sure that we keep our community safe.
Our next answer to the question comes from Democrat Constance Partee Johnson.
First of all, I'd like to apologize to the mayor because I didn't hear the question being asked to her being first. I thought we were still in a poverty question. Okay. But I am very concerned about the criminality of Charlotte. Every night there's a crime. Every single night there's a murder. And this is not normal living. If you think that this is just something we should simply work with the police chief on, then you're sadly mistaken. We have to do something urgently, something that's revolutionary to stop the crime. And it's going to start with changing the psychology of the citizens of Charlotte to understand that we do need to focus on the police department and not the citizens, but focus on the police department to make sure that these accidental murders don't take place, and to make sure that we not, violate the crime, violate criminality by trying to stop someone from that's involved in crime. The murder that took place last September was heart-wrenching for the city of Charlotte, embarrassed the city of Charlotte, and there has to be more done through the police department.
I'm sorry, we're going to have to interrupt you. That's your minute.
Thank you.
Your final answer on the question of violent crime in Charlotte neighborhoods comes from Democrat Vi Lyles.
I have 3 areas of focus as we talk about safety in our community. First, creating the opportunity. I developed and designed the apprenticeship program where we are training people that are under or unemployed in construction and fiber optic cabling. We need to expand that program. The second thing that we need to do is we do need to have our police officers in our neighborhoods talking with our neighbors so that they know and understand that the police department is as committed to their personal safety as they are to any idea of somebody just breaking into your car. It is about personal safety. And the final thing that I would say is that we have to work on the reduction of violent crime. That means where this violent crime is occurring, we need to look at the causes of it and then develop strategies to attack it.
Thank you. And you're watching the Charlotte mayoral primary debate here on WTVI PBS Charlotte, sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Charlotte-Mecklenburg. And you can't have a debate in Charlotte unless you talk a little bit about traffic and taxes. So our next question is about traffic and taxes. Should the city consider raising local sales or property taxes to spend more money on transportation infrastructure, either road widening and maintenance or public transit like light rail and streetcars, or maybe both? Our first answer comes from Democrat Jennifer Roberts.
So one of the things that we know in a 21st century city that's the second fastest growing city in America is that people need transportation options. Some people can't afford a car. They need to be able to get to the doctor and to work with public transportation. So we absolutely need to continue to expand public transportation, transit bus system. We're rerouting our buses so that they're not going to all be going into the center and out, but will be more cross-town routes to make it more accessible and easier. We also need to expand bikeways and walkability of our communities, because a lot of people are able to bike and walk to work. And mixed-use housing and mixed-use developments will allow more of that to happen as well. We are going to continue to see people moving away from cars. We know we have autonomous vehicles in the future. There are a lot of interesting things that are being researched right now. And I think the key is going to be options, to be able to have people afford to live in Charlotte, be able to have access to those things they need to be successful.
Our next answer comes from Republican Kimberly Page Barnett.
I don't believe in higher taxes. I think it's directly related to the poverty issue. I just don't agree with it.
All right, our next answer comes from Democrat Joel Ford.
Well, let me answer the question this way, and I want to be straightforward with the viewers of this debate. I will not advocate, nor would I support raising your taxes. One of the things that I don't think that we can afford to do is to not be clear about what our intentions are when we want to lead the city of Charlotte. And so for the mayor not to answer the question, that's a problem. So one of the things as mayor I would do for the city of Charlotte is to work with the North Carolina General Assembly, because right now that there are legislative restrictions on funding of light rail. Our mass transit system is a multi-billion-dollar project that is stuck on the shelf. And so unless we have local leadership that has a relationship with the North Carolina General Assembly to draw down the necessary state funding to help us with our traffic and infrastructure, the city of Charlotte will be stuck in neutral.
Our next answer to the question about raising taxes to improve traffic and transportation comes from Constance Partee Johnson.
I strongly believe that there is a lack of interest from the general public in using our public transportation systems. So I would put forth a campaign to promote citizens being more engaged in using public transportation. We have a beautiful rail system that was put together by a former council, and we have bus services buses that are beautiful and clean. But there have not, we don't have anyone promoting the use of these transportation systems. We're still flooded downtown with parking. Parking is somewhat expensive downtown. I would work on lowering the parking rates. I know these are private entities, but I believe that we should work on keeping our parking lots and our parking lanes, pretty economically low. Making sure that people can afford them because people want to use their cars, but we really need to promote more. So instead of using cars, using public transportation.
Okay, our next answer comes from Democrat Vi Lyles.
So we have to understand that people do need transportation to be able to move from work to home, and they need to be able to do that in reasonable amounts of time so that we can spend time with our families. So what I want to say is our focus should really be on how do we move the city's traffic more efficiently and do it in a way that gives people options. You know, the cost of a car is almost $3,000 in state taxes and local taxes. So if we can make it possible that a family doesn't have to have that car, it's going to make a real difference in the way that they can spend money on their children, on their children's education. When we talk about taxes, I believe that you can look at my record as the city's budget director. I did over 22 budgets without a tax increase. That means I understand governmental finance, and taxes are not the way to build a city of opportunity. What we need to do is build a city of opportunity for transportation options that people will embrace and endorse.
Our final answer to the question of traffic and taxes comes from Lucille Puckett.
Just to answer the question, no, I do not support the raising of taxes to improve traffic and transportation.
Thank you for keeping it short. And our time is growing short, so for the final questions in this debate, we're going to limit the answers to 30 seconds instead of 1 minute so we can ask a few more questions. So thank you for bearing with us, candidates. And our next question deals with sports franchises and taxes. Should the city use tax dollars and tax incentives to lure and support pro sports franchises in Charlotte? The first answer to this question goes to Republican Kimberly Page Barnett.
I think within reason, yes, possibly. We need to encourage more businesses here. That's what we want, more monies in the economy. So I would say yes.
All right, our next question, or our next answer, I should say, comes from Democrat Joel Ford.
Not all pro sports franchises are created equal, and so I think it's important for the city of Charlotte to continue to position itself as a leader in the Southeast and the United States. What I have a challenge with is our local leadership looking at Major League Soccer as an option when we have a growing demand for affordable housing. If the city of Charlotte cannot do both, we should not do Major League Soccer.
Our next answer to the question of taxes being spent on pro sports franchises comes from Constance Partee Johnson.
I think absolutely we need to use our tax dollars to build pro franchises, pro sports franchises. What I'm concerned about is the amounts that are being negotiated and the amounts being proposed to spend on these sports entities. The soccer field, I believe, is feasible. We just need to determine other options for financing that project. Thank you.
All right, our next answer to the question comes from Democrat Vi Lyles.
I can't imagine us without the Panthers. Yay, go guys this week. We're looking forward to a great season. So there are sports franchises that bring economic impact and development, and we pay for those with hospitality dollars. Those are the taxes that visitors often pay, the taxes that restaurants and taxis and all of those things that make that happen. So I would say that let's talk specifically about soccer. In this case, I don't believe that soccer, as has been presented to the city council at least, is a viable option as a sports franchise from our hospitality taxes.
Democrat Lucille Puckett, you've got the next chance to answer the question.
That's something that needs to be talked about. Like by my opponent, Vi Lyles, said that, we couldn't imagine Charlotte without the Panthers. Soccer may be an option in the future, but I think the owner should bring more to the table than using our tax revenues for that. And at this point in time, as we already spoke about affordable housing, crime rate, we need to focus on things like that versus bringing professional sports to Charlotte.
Democrat Jennifer Roberts, you get the last chance to talk about taxes in pro sports franchises.
So first I want to recognize that we have thousands of jobs and millions of dollars of revenue from our professional sports teams, and they have been great philanthropists in the community as well, and we greatly appreciate that. I think it depends on the sport, it depends on the timing, and clearly right now for this city, looking at soccer, the priorities are housing and parks and schools. The community has spoken up and the city is recognizing that. I think that every opportunity should be looked at. I think Charlotte should put its best foot forward. And you know, when it comes to incentives, we should always try to get private money to lead.
All right. Our next question to our candidates running for Charlotte Mayor deals with employment and unemployment. What would you do as mayor to help Charlotte attract jobs that particularly would train and employ lower skilled workers? The first answer this time goes to Democrat Joel Ford.
One of the things that I think that the mayor can do a better job of is being a champion for those underskilled, low-skilled workers in the city of Charlotte. If you take a look at the economic dollars that the city of Charlotte leverages with the county and the state, most of those jobs go to Uptown and in South Charlotte. East and West Charlotte are hardest hit. We need to leverage our multi-billion-dollar airport to attract more logistics jobs so that those folks in the community who have low skills can earn higher pay.
Constance Partee Johnson, you're next up to answer the question.
What I believe is that we need to provide far more training than we do in the most recent type of technologies. It's not that people cannot learn, it's just that it's not being offered to certain groups. We will import people in to take on those high-tech jobs instead of training our own, and that needs to change. We need to train our own.
Democrat Vi Lyles, you're next.
I think the mayor has to go out and be an active participant in recruiting businesses to Charlotte. We need people to come here and create opportunity, but it's beyond low-skilled workers. So when people come in, they need to see the ability to move from where they are to where they need to be so that they can afford to live in our city. So what I'm looking for is affordable living, the ability to work in Charlotte and live in Charlotte, attracting businesses that provide that opportunity.
The question is how to create more low-income jobs. The question now goes to Lucille Puckett, excuse me.
We need to train our the people that needs these jobs. We need to train them. I mean, when the jobs come to Charlotte, and when they come to Charlotte, we need to make it where we can't force them, but we need to make them where they are willing to employ those, to train them on the job training. I know when I was with the Housing Authority, when anyone had a contract in certain communities, they had to have a certain % of those people to work on those jobs. And I think if that becomes something that the city or the mayor involved, I believe that we can bring more jobs and employ more low-income people.
Democrat Jennifer Roberts.
Sometimes when I hear Joel Ford talk about the city of Charlotte, I wonder if we're living in the same city. We are working very hard as a city to employ the underemployed, to help people who are part of that digital divide to get the skills they need to succeed. We have a PEACE program that's about integrated employment. It is about reaching people who are hard to reach. We have great job fairs at the airport, over 20,000 people employed there. We have great folks employed on our transit expansion, and we continue to work with youth employment. We've added 2 more people to the Mayor's Youth Employment Program to double the number of young people so that we can reduce that youth unemployment rate, which is also incredibly important for success.
Next answer comes from Republican Kimberly Page Barnett.
I do not think that we should encourage more lower income persons to move to Charlotte. We want to attract the higher income persons to Charlotte. That's the issue at hand. There are plenty of people, I believe, here that can work those jobs. They just do not want to work those jobs. So if the minimum wage goes up, then their wages will meet the income that they need to have a standard house, meet their needs. However, it will not pay to have expensive cars. They need to prioritize correctly, and then we don't want to encourage the lower income people. We want to encourage the higher income people here in Charlotte. They're going to have the most money to be able to spend in our economy.
Well, I'd like to thank all the candidates who came today and answered our questions for being here, for helping inform the audience about the issues that are important to the folks who are going to be voting in the upcoming election. You can learn more about the League of Women Voters of Charlotte-Mecklenburg at goleaguego.org. For more about the candidates you heard today, go to vote411.org. And we've also got the debate that you've just watched posted online at pbscharlotte.org. That's a lot of .orgs. Early voting is already underway. It ends on Saturday, September 9th. The primary itself will be held on Tuesday, September 12th. The polls are open on Election Day from 6:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. You can find out more about early voting times by checking with the Mecklenburg County Board of Elections. Also, most of our Charlotte-Mecklenburg libraries also have information about early voting. I'm Jeff Sonnier. Thanks for watching tonight's special election coverage here on WTVI PBS Charlotte. And go out and vote.